last week I may have touched on this very briefly. I want to hit it again, even though it's not in what we read this morning. Verse 19. And when you look up to the sky and see the sun, moon, and stars, all the heavenly array, do not be enticed into bowing down to them and worshiping things Yahweh your God has apportioned to all the nations under heaven. In other words, the Gentiles were allowed and said, okay, you can go worship these things, but the people of Abraham have been chosen to know me and to worship me. In other words, I'll tolerate it from them, I won't tolerate it from you. Okay? And especially now, he says, verse 20, but as for you, Yahweh took you and brought you out of the iron smelting furnace, out of Egypt, to be the people of his inheritance as you are now. Now that's a key phrase. The last part of that, you are his inheritance. That ties directly into Ephesians 1, which we talked about last week and we'll talk about more this week. We're his inheritance. The land or the earth is our inheritance. That's an interesting concept. In other words, the kingdom is what we're looking forward to inheriting, living under his rule, but yet we are his inheritance. And something that's confusing for some people, and I really don't know why. Ever since the first century, people have tried to confuse the concept of grace and law. And they try and make them opposites and say they're against each other. But if you understand each of them in its right context, there should be no confusion. Okay, I've got up on the board here, Egypt, the kingdom of slavery, sin, and darkness, okay? He calls it here the iron smelting furnace. What does Egypt represent? The kingdom of Satan. You're a slave to sin. You're sold under sin. You have no hope and you don't know God. God comes in and through the Passover and his miracles and stuff, he saves the people of Israel. Okay? Are they saved by good works or by grace?
Grace.
By grace. They don't deserve it. They haven't done anything good. All they've done is an act of faith by offering a Passover lamb. That's it. It's simply an act of faith. Okay?
They don't even know God at this time, do they?
Oh, they know about him, but they don't really know him. They don't know his ways. They're not walking in his ways. They're walking in the ways of the Egyptians.
Yeah.
Okay? And for 40 years, Moses is going to try and get them out of the ways of the Egyptians. And yeah, with good and bad results. Okay, but by grace, God saves them out of Egypt and takes them to Mount Sinai and says, you are now my people. As he said, I brought you out of Egypt to be the people of his inheritance as you are now. Okay, now this is at the end of the 40 years in the desert, because this is Deuteronomy. Okay, but he separated them from Egypt, and you are now my people. God, they go to Sinai, at which point God gives them the law. We can call it the covenant law, the Ten Commandments, and all the ancillary explanation of that in case law. He gives them what? Who is the law for?
Believers.
Believers. The law is for those who are already his people. You don't become his people by keeping the law. You become his people by grace. God chooses you and says, okay, you're mine. Now here's how to live. Okay. There shouldn't be any confusion. Okay. In Corinthians 6, 19, and 20, you have a very parallel passage. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 and 20. It says, do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought with a price, and therefore honor God with your body. Okay? Again, you're bought with a price. The price is the blood of Christ. Okay, he dies on the cross, and by grace you're saved and brought in to be the people of God. Now, therefore, glorify God. And how do you glorify God? By walking in his ways. Okay? People confuse this back and forth. They say, oh, you believe in keeping the Torah, therefore you believe in salvation by works. No. Okay? Sometimes I feel like reaching over and slapping people on the forehead to get their attention. Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Salvation is by grace. Service is by walking in his ways. His ways are ways of Torah. You don't be good to get saved. You can't. You don't even have the capability to it. And again, if you go back to the Calvinist idea of tulip, there's no way you can save yourself. You can only possibly be saved by grace. But then after you're saved, you should express your love and gratitude for God by walking in His ways. And His ways are the law. Okay? His ways in the New Testament are now the Holy Spirit living the law out through your heart with the spirit of the law, not just the letter of the law. Okay? I can't believe it. There's someone I know who I've known for many years. Okay? And he has confused this. He recently texted somebody or something and said, well, of course you have a problem with the church guy because they believe in salvation by grace and you believe in salvation by law. How can you confuse this? Okay? It's like, did you... never mind, I won't go with that analogy. Yeah, I will. You don't live according to the covenant of marriage before you're married, do you?
Yeah.
But after you're married, do you live by the covenant of marriage?
Yes.
Yes.
You mean
'Cause that's-
shacking up is not the covenant of marriage?
Excuse me?
Shacking up is not the covenant of
No,
marriage?
shacking up is not the covenant of marriage.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking about that this week, So many people don't get it, Well, we both slept around a lot before we got married, and now we're married. So now we're going to respect the whole idea of sex and marriage differently than we did before. Compare that to the person who didn't shack up at all and save themselves from marriage. When they get married, which one do you think has a stronger commitment towards marriage?
Right.
Yeah, the person who honored, the realm of sex beforehand, okay? And people just seem not to get that. And they wonder why the divorce rate is so high. Well, gee whiz, we didn't hold ourselves back before, and she just ticked me off. Now we're going to go ahead and go out and play around again. In fact, I know people who got revenge on their husbands or wives by going out and sleeping around. That was like punishment to them. And it's like, yeah, I see how much respect you have for the covenant of marriage. Okay, getting on to verse 21. This is now the third time in Deuteronomy that Moses reminds the people that Yahweh was angry with me because of you. Okay, you messed things up for me. Here, I was faithful for 40 years, except for this one time when you really got me ticked off and I lost my temper, and now I'm going to die in this land, and you guys, the second generation, are going to go over. Okay?
It's all your fault. It's blaming them for his losing his temper.
Well, yeah.
I can see why he would. They got him pretty mad.
I mean, they provoked him, they provoked Yahweh. And at one point he says, these 10 times you have provoked me. Mm-hmm. Okay? Well, I would expect Yahweh has more patience than Moses. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay? So if Moses failed, I have a lot of sympathy with Moses. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I can understand why he's kind of bitter at this point, because here, I've been faithful for 120 years, and I'm the one who doesn't get to go in.
But the thing is, the people he's talking to, well, they were children at the time, or were they not even born yet when that happened?
Well, they would have been under 20 years old.
So they were around.
Yeah, so some of them were around. Some of them weren't.
Yeah, because like you said, he never had seen the land. He just was going on.
Yeah. That still astounds me. Moses had never seen the land. He was leading them to someplace he'd never been. I'd always assumed that when he was out pasturing those sheep, he knew the land of what was going to be Israel. But he didn't. He'd never been there. He'd been out in the Arabian Peninsula. So, anyway. But they get to cross over, and he reminds them in verse 23, be careful not to forget the covenant of Yahweh your God. And you look at that, and you look at the traditional church today, and what have they done?
We've forgotten the covenant.
They've forgotten the covenant. Okay,
Oh,
I mean,
they just ignore it.
setting the Sabbath aside, to some degree, they think they're actually keeping. Okay, you look at the rest of the covenant, how much attention is paid to it? Okay, how many times in your life has someone actually done a serious study of the Ten Commandments in Sunday school or preaching?
Never.
Well, I have. I have come across it once or twice. There was a Baptist church in Fort Lauderdale that actually did a study on the Ten Commandments, in which he completely ignored the Old Testament. He just took it as a kind of an abstract philosophical thing. Didn't relate it to the two primary commands, love God and love your neighbor. But he did try, from where he was at, he tried to study the Ten Commandments. And then in a Reformed church, Actually, I was probably teaching that class, so I don't know if that counts or not. When I've heard the honor your parents commandment taught on, most of the time what I hear taught is what it doesn't mean. In other words, well, this doesn't really mean that you have to take care of your parents. This doesn't really mean that you have to seriously listen to them or take their advice. This just means you have to be courteous to them. Okay? Do you think that's what it meant in this historical context? Think about it. How did tribal leadership work? The oldest male member of the tribe was the patriarch. He led the tribe. The next ones under him, family heads, led their different section of the tribe. The family heads led the tribe. When it meant to honor your parents, it really meant to take them seriously and to take care of them. In the Gospels, when Yeshua talks about, what's the name? What's that sacrifice? The offering where you burn it up, the Holocaust offering. But it's called something else. Don't come to me. Just, senior moment here.
Burnt offering?
There's a name for it.
Whole burnt offering?
There's a name for it.
All right.
Anyway, he says, you dedicate your things under this, and you say, I cannot do anything for you, my parents, because this has been dedicated to the temple.
Corban.
Oh,
Corban.
Corban,
Thank you.
that's it.
Yeah, the Corban offering. He says, I've dedicated this to God, so I can't do anything for you. And he says, you're taking and twisting the commandment. The commandment says to honor your father and mother. And Yeshua said that meant to take care of their needs, physical and financial needs. If you are ignoring your parents, you are not honoring them. Now, what does the word honor mean in Hebrew?
To consider heavy.
Right. It's kavod. It means heavy. In the ancient world, the way he told us something was valuable was by how heavy it was. What's about the most heaviest thing there is?
Gold.
Gold. And next to that, the other precious metals. And you go up the line till you get to like wood, which has almost no value, okay, compared to the heavy metals. Okay, the heavier something was, the more valuable it was. Okay. Compare stone to brick, which is heavier?
Stone.
Stone, which lasts longer?
Stone.
Stone. Okay, metal is heavier than stone, which is going to last longer, which is more valuable? Metal. Okay, and so to honor someone, it meant to hold them as heavy. Hold your parents like gold. Okay, as something valuable. Okay, and you don't have that idea coming forth in the way people treat the commandment today. Today it's like, well, Mom and Dad, you raised me and everything, but you're on your own. When it comes to taking care of you. I hope you got enough money to cover it because, I ain't going to help. And when you get to be too much of a nuisance, we will dump you in a nursing home because it's not that I can't do it, I don't want to. Okay, and it becomes very much the same thing as the abortion issue. Why is abortion legitimate in the eyes of the 20th century? Because that child is an inconvenience. That child will take too much time, attention, and money, and it will inconvenience my life. So I kill the child. With the parents, what are we looking at today?
Same thing.
Our parents are too old, they're going to cost us too much money, they're going to inconvenience us, let's get rid of them. Okay? Now, I understand just how, I've had 3 kids, and we have 2 old parents that we're taking care of now. So I understand the pull of this. Okay? Someone said to me recently, regarding my mother, says, it kind of makes you rethink euthanasia, doesn't it? I went, no, it doesn't. And he's not the one taking care of her. Okay? So I look at that and I go, wow, I understand this, 20th century thinking. It's not okay to execute a murderer who goes out and kills people or commits rape. We have an issue with that right now. It's not okay to kill them, but people who are inconvenient to you, it's okay to get rid of. Remember the covenant. Go back, study the covenant, and that's what we're going to be doing in Deuteronomy, studying the covenant as God explained it. And he ends up there saying, verse 24, for Yahweh your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. Okay, and here's where we have to draw a difference between jealousy and envy. Envy means I'm jealous over something that you have. Jealousy is being protective over something that is yours. It's proper to be jealous over something which is yours. God's people belong to him. He bought them and brought them out of Egypt. He saved them out of slavery. They belong to him. He's right to be jealous over them. They should worship only him because he is their Savior. He's their God. Okay. By contrast, it's not proper to be jealous over someone else, which, again, we call envy. Envy is when you want something that belongs to someone else. You have no right to it, but you're envious of it because you want it. Okay, jealousy is protecting what's yours. But God is a jealous God, and he's going to go over to the concept of idolatry here. God is jealous that we not give his glory, his proper worship to an idol. Now, we brought this up quickly last week. There's 3 words I want you to connect together: corrupt, idol, and evil. Now, we'll read verse 25 on to the end of that paragraph. After you've had children and grandchildren and have lived in the land a long time, if you then become corrupt and make any kind of idol, doing evil in the eyes of Yahweh your God and provoking him to anger, I call heaven and earth as witnesses against you this day, that you will quickly perish from the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You will not live there long, but will certainly be destroyed. Yahweh will scatter you among the peoples, and only a few of you will survive among the nations to which Yahweh will drive you. There you will worship man-made gods of wood and stone, which cannot see or hear or eat or smell. But if from there you seek Yahweh your God, you will find him if you look for him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in distress, and all these things have happened to you, then in later days you will return to Yahweh your God and obey him. For Yahweh your God is a merciful God. He will not abandon or destroy you or forget the covenant with your forefathers, which he confirmed to them by oath. Now, notice the 3 words there: corrupt, idol, and evil. Okay. Idolatry is a corruption of who God is. And we touched on this last week, and we'll hit it again quickly. I'm not an artist, so you'll have to forgive me.
Actually, that was pretty good.
Okay, let's say you have a 3-dimensional representation of a cube. Okay, let's say this represents the idea of who God is. If you give this to a child or someone ignorant, they don't understand how the dimensions work and why the lines are the way they are. So they see this and they kind of do okay, that's my representation of it. This is a corruption of what this is. To make an idol is to corrupt the true image of God. The true image of God is given in the Torah. Okay, the laws reveal his nature and his character. If you make an idol, you can only get one aspect, out of an idol. Maybe even if you try and make a 3-sided idol, you might get 3 aspects of it. But God is so multifaceted, so in-depth, that anytime you make an idol, you corrupt his image. Okay? And when you corrupt his image by representing him as something limited compared to who Yahweh is, then you tend to follow in the ideas that image portrays. And when you follow in the ideas of what an idol portrays, you corrupt your ways. Because no idol can represent all of who God is. Okay, when you look at the Torah, you look at all the scriptures, you can't have an idol that really represents justice, mercy, power, love, grace, kindness, and certainly not eternality. Okay, an idol is static. So anytime you make something fixed, you are corrupting the image of God, which will then lead you to corrupt the way you live. You'll be out of balance. And what does it say in Scripture about balance? God hates a false balance. And anytime that applies in a sense to your life too. What's wrong with most people? They're out of balance. They're either too far on the the legal side, or they're too much on the grace side. Okay, they don't keep the 2 in balance. And it's like one of my professors told me, preachers are either poets or lawyers. Okay, the real key is to find the balance between being the poet and the lawyer. Okay, because there is the grace and love and touchy-feely on one side, but there's also the legal side. Okay, and you have to bring the 2 together. And that's what I believe the Holy Spirit is doing in the New Testament. Okay, the function of the Holy Spirit is to bring those 2 things together. In fact, in the book of Psalms it says, in the latter day, justice and mercy will kiss each other. the two will be brought together in proper balance. Sometimes sit down there and meditate on that justice and mercy, kissing each other. It's a very interesting concept because only God can make that happen. Anyway, and he calls heaven and earth to witness against them this day, that if they break the covenant, he will chastise them. Okay, remember when we talked about this being a Hittite covenant treaty? Okay, and there always has to be witnesses. This is one of the places where Moses calls witnesses. And he's calling heaven and earth to witness the covenant between God and man. And he tells them ahead of time, Yahweh will scatter you among the peoples, and only a few of you will survive. But he tells them, and this is the concept, only a few of you will survive this punishment. Look up the word remnant sometime and just trace it to the Old Testament. Okay? The word remnant, God is going to preserve a remnant of the people. And the remnant is the few faithful, okay, who survived the trials. And then, related to that very concept, in verse 29, it says, but if from there, from the foreign country I drove you to, you seek Yahweh your God, you will find him if you look for him with all your heart and all your soul. Jeremiah 29:13 quotes this exact concept, where Jeremiah speaks to the people who are going into exile and says, when you go in, if you turn and you look back for God, you'll find him if you look for him with all your heart and all your soul. Okay, he makes that promise to them hundreds of years after this. Okay, because everything that happens during the period of the prophets, God foretold ahead of time. He said, if you disobey me, this is what will happen. If people disobey, the prophets come up and say, this is what's going to happen. It happens, and they keep reminding him, if you will turn back to God, he will bring you back. Okay? Okay. And then he says, I won't forget you. In verse 30, when you are in distress and all these things have happened to you, then in later days you will return to Yahweh your God and obey him. I really can't help but think in later days, if that isn't parallel to the idea of in the latter days. Because has Israel ever really returned to Yahweh? I don't think so. Some of the people did. But as a nation, I don't think they ever really, even though they came back to the land, when you read to the prophets at the end of the Tanakh, you find the people turning away. They're being, like Malachi is deriding the people for men marrying wives when they're young, and when their wives start getting the same age they are, they dump them and go get a younger wife. And he really comes out on them and he says, God hates divorce. Okay, he also tells them, you're cheating God in your tithes and offerings. Okay, and God is angry with you. If you will obey, he will bless you. Okay, and then you go into the period of the first century where the key issue seems to be, from what we hear from Yeshua, is that the people love money more than other people. So when Yeshua gets asked that question, what's the greatest commandment? He says, to love God and your neighbor. And he constantly derides them about them putting their investment portfolio over people. Okay, and this goes right back to that whole fifth commandment thing, honoring your parents. What's more important, your secure future or taking care of the job God has given you right now and here in your parents? Okay. And then he goes on, verse 31, for Yahweh your God is a merciful God. He will not abandon or destroy you or forget the covenant with your forefathers, which he confirmed to them by oath. In other words, God's not forgetting the covenant at all. He's asking you to live up to it, okay, even when it's hard. And he's going to remember it, and he will bring the remnant back. Okay? And we have to stop here.